Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Med Gym for another Technique Tuesday. So one of the biggest technique flaws that we tend to see when we're taking clients through lower body strength training exercises here at the Med Gym is a tendency to overuse and over rely on the quads when they're doing a quad or a knee dominant strength training exercise. So we typically categorize our strength exercises into two big categories. You have your hip dominant or hamstring dominant strength exercises, which are things like deadlifts, glute bridges, hip hinges, anything that works the back of the legs and the butt muscles. And then on the other side, you have your quad or your knee dominant strength exercises. And what makes it a quad or knee dominant strength exercise is the tendency to bend, have more of a knee bend when you're going through that. So you might use the hips, you might use the hamstrings some on these exercises, but you're gonna use more of the quad, which is a positive way to strengthen the quad muscle. But the more amount of knee bend that you have on this exercise means that there's a tendency to sometimes overuse the knee. And we tend to live in a society that is overall quad dominant. So a lot of people tend to rely on their quads for a lot of their movement, the front of their legs. They don't use their hips very well. They don't use their hamstrings. They don't really get back into the hips and hamstrings when they're moving, so they tend to overuse their knees and their quads. You can see this a lot of times when you see someone climb stairs and they're only up on their toes. Anytime you're up on your toes, you're going to tend to overuse your knees and your quads and not recruit the hip muscles to do that movement. And so we want to talk about how we can do quad dominant or knee dominant strength exercises in a positive way to strengthen the quads, but without overusing the knees and staying away from anything that's causing too much strain on the knee. To give you an example of this, I'm going to go through a two-leg squat. And the two-leg squat, we incorporate a lot of quad and hip work at the same time as we have the hips and the knees bending as we go throughout that movement. One of the biggest problems, though, that we see a lot of times when we have folks in here who are quad or knee dominant is that they tend to let the knees glide forward as they go through that squatting motion. So they start dropping down into it, and instead of sitting back, they get all the weight up on the toes, and they have that forward glide of the knees. And that becomes a big problem, number one, because they're not effectively using the hip muscles as well as the quads. They're overusing the quads, and they're re-ingraining that quad dominance. And number two, that puts a lot more strain on the knees. As you get that forward gliding of the knees, you get the forward force of the femur wanting to drive over the tibia, and that creates a lot of shear force at the knee that the tendons and the other structures in the knee have to control for. So as we go through a squat or any other knee and quad dominant exercise, you want to have knee bend. It's okay to have a decent amount of knee bend as long as that weight is evenly distributed between the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot. So to cue folks away from letting that knee glide forward too far, we say feel the whole foot on the ground the whole time. So you have the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot, weight distributed evenly there, and you're going down without letting too much of that weight rock forward. The other way to think about it is think about sitting back to something like there's a chair behind you rather than just dropping straight down. So instead of dropping straight down, you sit back like you're sitting into a chair, and that helps to use the glute muscles as well as the back of the legs and take away some of the stress from the knees. We can take that same idea also to a lunge or a split squat exercise. And a lunge or a split squat, again, another good quad and knee dominant strength exercise. And we're just really taking that two-leg squat to a single leg as we split the stance. So if I show you a split squat, we're going to set up with a split stance, most of the work being done on your front leg. But the problem comes when people drop down into it and they let that front knee glide forward over the toe rather than keeping the weight even between their two legs. So you want to feel about 50% of your weight on your front leg, 50% of your weight on your back leg when you're dropping down into that, and able to use the whole front foot to drive up. That'll ensure that you're balanced around the front knee. You're not overusing that front leg knee. You're dropping straight down and able to use the muscles balanced around that front leg. Another good example of a quad or knee dominant strength exercise is a step up. And so a step up relies really on one leg to do the work. And so we get one leg up on a step, and we're really in the same kind of setup as the bottom of a squat. We're just starting from this 90-degree angle at the knee, and now we're going to press up and use that front leg to create some force to strengthen the quad and the hip muscles. And then again, the same thing happens here, that we get a lot of knee moving forward. A lot of times on this one, because you're starting from zero almost, people tend to rock forward to create some momentum. So they go forward first, and then up. And like I mentioned, you'll see that a lot of times with people, you watch people climbing stairs, their foot's on the edge of the step, they're all up on their toe, and all of a sudden there's that big knee angle and all that force on the quad and all that force on the front of the knee is creating a lot of pressure right down on the knee joint. So to balance that and to avoid too much pressure and pain on the knee joint, we're going to take that foot, we're going to feel the whole foot right in the middle of the step. We're going to think about pressing through the heel to drive up, and we're going to use all of the muscles evenly around the knee instead of just letting that glide forward. So we're going to step up here, using the heel to drive straight up, keeping a vertical shin, not letting that shin angle glide forward like that. So there you have it. Thanks for joining me for another Technique Tuesday. Keep that in mind as you're going through any kind of quad or knee dominant exercise, that you're not overusing the quad or the knee by letting that knee glide forward and keeping the weight on the ball of your foot. Instead, keep that weight evenly distributed between the heel and the ball of your foot and make sure you're not overusing the knee.